Nick, I want to ask you some questions about those nightmares, okay? Just to put it in just this tight little box, okay? You've had nightmares,
Yes,
and the nightmares have been about what happened to you on the Apple River when you were attacked.
correct.
And the nightmares are essentially a replaying of what it is that happened. Agreed?
Correct.
And when you have those nightmares, your body responds in a
Objection, Your Honor, please approach.
Yes.
Nick, those nightmares that you've had about what happened on July 30th, have you sought medical treatment for that?
Yes,
Just a couple of, I want to just make sure we check a couple of legal boxes, okay? When you used the knife, did you believe you were under attack?
yes,
Why?
because they, at that point, they've already been pushing and tugging and
When you used the knife, had they done anything more than pushing or tugging? Did
they
you,
punched me, they pushed me down, they threw me in the water, I hit my head, yes, so
when you decided to use your knife, were you using it to prevent an attack or stop the attack that was happening?
to defend myself,
Did you believe you needed to use that knife?
absolutely.
In that moment in time, again, as you've described it, they've pushed you down into the water, you've been punched. That's the moment of time I want to ask you about, okay?
Yeah.
In that moment of time, when you were down in the water, did you believe you could escape?
No,
What do you believe would have happened to you had you not used your knife?
I would have died. I believe I would have been killed that day,
Why'd
or at
you,
that specific time,
why'd you use your knife?
to defend myself.
Those are the only questions I have, Judge.
Mr. Smith-Stack.
You can approach, Judge. Mr. Miu, you've been drinking that day, right?
Yeah, I had a,
And
Like
showing what's
beers.
marked as Exhibit 12A. You recognize that?
yes,
That's the group photo of you folks from the beginning of the river.
Yep.
In fact, you're holding a beer.
correct.
Looks like everybody in your group has some sort of alcoholic beverage.
Looks like it.
You see numerous people in your group with these phone cases around their necks.
Yeah.
And as you're going down the river, you saw lots of people with phone cases around their necks, right?
Mm-hmm.
All day long?
Yeah,
In fact, River's Edge sells or rents out those phone cases, right?
I don't know that.
Did people in your group rent or buy phone cases from the tube rental?
I have no
stand?
idea.
All right. You've testified that you were told to bring the knife before you left your home, right?
Correct.
And the reason for bringing your knife on the river was to cut strings or ropes for the tubes, right?
Correct.
And that was the reason you brought it.
Correct.
In fact, you told the police that after your tubes were tied together, you thought you put your knife back in the car, right?
Correct.
But in fact, it was in your pocket.
Yes.
Was it in your pocket the whole day?
No.
All right, well, we're going to get to that. Once the tubes are tied together with the rope, and you said that you thought that you put it back in your car, you don't have a reason to have the knife anymore, right? It accomplished its purpose, right?
I didn't know that at the time.
All right. Did you tell the cops, that the police, that you didn't think you were going to need it, and that's why you thought you put it in the car?
I may have.
All right. Were you present when Steve Kaufman, who owns River's Edge, testified first day of the trial?
Yes.
And you heard him say that they sell pre-cut cords for $1, right?
Right.
All right. And then, did you see in the picture, when you got on the river, you were wearing that long-sleeve camel shirt, right?
Mhm.
A hat and sunglasses?
Correct.
All right. Ariel's phone was in one of those cases, right?
Sure, yeah, I can see it.
All right, and is it your understanding that those cases are float cases?
That's what I was told.
All right, and you told, in fact, you told Lieutenant Hart that it was in a float case, right?
Correct.
Once the phone disappeared, there was conversation amongst the folks in your group about whether it was even worth it to go look for it, right?
That's what I learned.
And in fact, you were told that they didn't care about the lost phone because they had insurance to cover it, right?
That's what I learned here, but I don't remember that as a conversation.
Nobody asked you to go look for the phone, right?
Correct.
You chose to do that on your own.
I volunteered.
And in fact, members of your group were a little annoyed that you were stopping again so quickly after having been at the hideaway where you'd stopped for lunch.
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
Did you hear anybody in your group say, why are we stopping again?
I didn't stop the group.
The group stopped when you decided to go off on your own to look for this phone, right?
Speculation.
Overruled.
Right?
They already stopped. I got off the tube to look for so I didn't stop them.
In any event, you're the one who insisted on looking for it. Nobody asked you to do that, right?
Objection,
Sustained.
And when you left to go look for the phone, you had your goggles and your snorkel, right? You knew that the phone was in a float bag, at least that's what you told police afterwards, right? Is that a yes?
Yes,
So the bag, the phone and the float bag would have been floating, right?
supposedly,
All right, and so you wouldn't need a snorkel and goggles to find a phone floating on top of the water, right?
I wasn't sure if it was actually floating or not, never tested it.
All right, well, you would agree that a phone has some weight to it,
Yes,
and if it wasn't a float bag, it would sink to the bottom, right?
yes,
Where it was dropped.
correct. Well, or remember, it's a river, so it could have flown down.
The river has current, right?
Right. So it
If
could
I
have
can
flown.
approach, I'm gonna draw something here.
Yes.
You remember when you met with Lieutenant Hart, you drew a diagram of the river. All right, and this is your group up here at the sandbar, right?
Mhm.
This is the boys' group down here. I'll put initials IS for Isaac Schumann, right?
Correct.
This is the diagram that you wrote, or drew for Lieutenant Hart. The phone was lost over here, right?
Mhm.
Instead of looking downstream for it where the current was going, you went this way, across the current,
No,
to look for the phone. You made contact with Isaac Schumann's group on the other side of the river.
but that's not where I started looking for it, straight across the river.
That's where you ended up making contact with
I
them.
ended up there, but I didn't start there.
All right, the phone would not have floated across the current, right?
Well, I don't know where he lost it. That's where we pulled over. He could have lost it minutes before we even anchored.
So when you testified a minute ago that the phone was lost, where your group was labeled M, now you're changing that story?
In that vicinity,
Objection.
Again, members of the jury, what the attorneys say is not evidence. Rely on the witness's testimony. Next question, please.
In any event, it's your testimony that you had reason to go over to the south side of the river where Isaac Schumann's group was, to look for a phone. That's your story?
I had reason to search in that area. I didn't know where that phone fell in the water. I don't think even Ariel knew where he lost it. We didn't drop the phone when we anchored. He dropped the phone before we got there.
Fair to say that at that point in the river is 150 feet wide,
Yep,
and Isaac Schumann's group was on the south side of the river.
correct.
Your group's on the north side of the river.
100 feet.
Rather than searching the north side, you went to the south side of the river. Is that fair to say?
Already looked in that area.
That's not what I'm asking. You went over to the south side of the river, right?
Overruled. You can answer the question.
You did, right?
What was that question again?
You went over to the south side of the river to supposedly look for this phone, right?
I ended up there at that point, yes.
And you chose to go over there and look for it, where these boys were.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
Oh,
You chose to go over to where these boys were to look for, supposedly look for this phone, right?
chose to look in that area, yes.
There was other areas of the river where there was, these boys weren't located that you could have searched until they floated past. Right?
A million other spots.
Sure. But you chose to go to that spot.
I didn't even notice those boys there at the time when I was searching.
You were present in court when Eric Williams, who was a member of your group, testified, right?
Right?
You heard him testify?
Yes,
And you were here when he testified that he had some concerns about you going over to snorkel by this group, Isaac's group?
I heard him.
And one of his concerns is that he thought that they would think you were a predator, right?
Sustained.
He testified that you didn't have your knife in your pocket the whole time, right?
Correct.
When you decided to go snorkel over by Isaac Schumann's group, you had the knife in your pocket.
Yes.
Did you go back to your group and get it?
No, I had the knife. I testified I did not have the knife in my pocket the whole time. When we pulled over there, I fixed my shoes. Then I left it in my pocket.
All right, but somehow, so when you get ready to snorkel,
Yes,
you've taken off your shirt, right?
yes,
Your hat,
yes,
your sunglasses,
correct.
you left the knife in your pocket.
I forgot it in my pocket.
Well, on the video, we can see you touching your knife, right? You knew it was in your pocket.
Well, when you walk, it starts, yeah, but
It has weight,
Right,
right?
yeah.
So you can't forget it's there because it's got weight. Correct?
at some point, I forgot I had it in my pocket when, yeah.
You
When
weren't
you
gonna,
walk.
you were not going to need your knife to snorkel and look for a lost phone.
Correct.
Overruled.
You weren't going to need your knife for that task that you set out to do, right?
I wouldn't even need anything.
But you brought it with you anyhow.
It happened to be in my pocket, yes.